is there a truly reality out there that humans could really know? It's an age-old battle between realists and absolutists. God is not great, how religion ruins everything. And yet it's utterly and totally ridiculous. We need to live for something beyond ourselves. I like to begin quoting a Frenchman named Jean-Paul Sartre, who was, I'd say, arguably the 20th century's most influential atheist. But listen to what Sartre said. He said, "It is very distressing that God does not exist, because all possibility of finding values in the heaven of ideas disappears along with him. There can no longer be an a priori good, since there is no infinite and perfect consciousness to think it." That's a very heavy thought, and I want to explore that a little more because I think he's right. I think if what he's saying is right, because he's basically saying if there is no God, then where does morality come from? And that's what I'd like to look at. Again, Sartre's point is if there is no God, if there is no transcendent being who, in a sense, imposes a morality on us, then where do we get morality from? You know, as I see it, there are really only two options for morals. There is a transcendence, a God who tells us what is right and what is wrong, or right and wrong are purely human creations. We create them. And I want to look at that second view because I think that's very important. See, in that second view, goodness and morality, right and wrong, they don't permeate the world the way sort of the Pythagorean theorem does, or the laws of thermodynamics, or Planck's constant. You know, morals are not like special relativity or general relativity, you know, waiting for kind of an Albert Einstein to come along and extract them from the air. You know, if there is no God, then really moral knowledge can't exist, only moral belief. Morality is a preference. It's like I happen to like Beethoven, you happen to like David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Or I like Big Macs and somebody else likes Clams Casino. Which is better? Values are really in the edge judged purely by their utility. Good gets the trains to run on time, you know, bad doesn't. Or even more fundamental, good is what you like, bad is what you don't like. Human senses, not divine commandments. Human appetites, not sacred texts. Human desires, not the religious injunctions. These are the stuff that morality, good, evil, right, and wrong are made of because there is nothing else to make them. Now, there's no question that Jean-Paul Sartre knew it was wrong to torture little children. You know, I mean, many atheists and secularists have been and still are good people. At times, I think, even better than some of their religious counterparts. That atheists and secularists can devise an internally coherent system of morals isn't the issue. What they can't do is that derive an internally coherent system based on any kind of transcendent views or beliefs because they don't believe that any exists. If values are from humanity, from human needs, from human nature, from human desire, then because the needs and desires change, then those morals must as well. On Dostoevsky in his novel Crime and Punishment, he had this woman, she became a prostitute in order to get food to feed her starving brother. And, you know, is it wrong for her to do that? Is it wrong to do that, to starve someone? You know, in the novel, Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov kills a nasty old woman, and because he wants to use the money that he stole from her to study and become great and devote himself to the service of humanity. I mean, were these acts in and of themselves wrong? You know, were they wrong? I mean, if there's no God who has imposed an immutable, categorical, moral order on us, you know, that condemns murder and prostitution and stealing, then what authority can justly say that it's wrong? The state Well, perhaps, but what the state imposes, the state can take away. If morals are created by political fiat only, then they're really no different than tax codes or, speed limits or keep off the grass sign. And if the state decides that murdering old ladies in order to help mothers and sisters or prostituting oneself to feed children are legal, then who's to say they're wrong? And with what justification can one say it? See, if morality does not transcend the human, even the human manifested as the state, then Hitler's murder of Jews under Nazi-occupied lands was moral because it was legal. To argue that it violated international law solves nothing because international law is as subjective as city fire codes. All right, suppose though, let's take this a little further. Suppose the Nazis had conquered the world. And so they made the genocide of Jews legal in every land. International law would not count then because no international law would be violated because it was no longer be criminal to kill Jews anywhere. Where no law is violated, no crime is committed. If, as Sartre said, there's no infinite and perfect consciousness to think them, then there are no absolutes that are transcendent, transnational, and eternal. How could there be? I mean, to talk about something, in that context is like asking what happens a mile north of the North Pole. It's meaningless because there's no morality prior to or independent of humanity. It's basically, if there's, morals exist only because people, Nazis included, think them up, hew them out, and justify them along the way. And that's the problem. Or suppose to, let's take it a step further. Suppose to, under their laws, say that the Nazis took over the world, and suppose to, they convinced Goebbels' propaganda. Suppose Goebbels' propaganda convinced every human being that murdering every man, woman, and child who was Jewish or who had one Jewish grandmother was a moral necessity. Suppose he convinced every human being in the world that it was okay to do it. Now remember, if morality doesn't come from above, if it comes just from human beings, then can what the whole world thinks right be wrong? Again, to argue that the genocide violates human nature doesn't work because the Holocaust was central to the Nazi moral vision. The Jews, they believe, were blood-sucking vermin who, for the good of humanity, had to be getting rid of. To preserve humanity, to preserve the best human, the Jews had to be eradicated. So, if everyone in the world believed that the murder of all the Jews was moral, was right, then is it moral? Is it right? Well, why not? Why not? I mean, if morality doesn't come from above, if it's a purely human thing, if we create it the way we create art and jazz and rock music, if it came totally from there and morality came that way and everybody believed that it was right, then how could it possibly be wrong? And if you're uncomfortable with that, why would you be uncomfortable with that? If morality is just a human thing. If you're uncomfortable with that, it's because many believe that there is a transcendent morality, that good and evil comes from somewhere else other than humanity. It's good and evil are not human constructs the way architecture or art or some of these things are. It must come from somewhere else. And I don't know, where else do you think that morality would come from if it were not from God or gods? And that's essentially, think about it. Again, if Hitler convinced everybody in the world that every Jew had to be murdered, and everybody in the world agreed with them, how could it be wrong? How could it be wrong? Again, if we create morality. So it would seem logically then, if you're not comfortable with that, if you can't believe in it under any circumstances, that would be right, then I think that's some pretty good evidence that morality must come from above. It's not a human construct. It's imposed, it's transcendent. And for many people, that is a powerful argument for the existence of God. Is it flawless? No, I don't know any argument about just about anything that's flawless anymore. Older I get, I see holes in everything. But nevertheless, I do think there's something there in that argument, something to make us think about it, if nothing else.